So today we talked with Pastor Alana, our worship leader here at the church. We talked about her upbringing on a farm in Kentucky. We talked about the current state of worship and the big sin of pride and how we keep it out of our life. You guys are going to enjoy this one.
Man, well, today, fully dedicated family. We are so excited. We have a special guest. This person has one of the most angelic voices I have ever heard.
Yes, she does.
In my entire life. Man, she will usher you into the presence of God. She is kind. She has one of the cutest babies, and her husband is awesome. Her name is Pastor Alana. She's our worship pastor.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm so good. Thank you.
Good.
That was so kind.
Yeah, you know, words are a we're on this podcast.
Yes.
We're going to encourage one another. We're going to build each other up.
I feel encouraged.
So getting into our podcast today, we're going to be talking about worship. We're going to be talking about you a little bit, get to know you a little bit. But let's kick it off with a little bit of fun. So what is your favorite throwback worship song? And if you can, maybe just sing like a line.
Just
so
like,
get ready
like the
to,
whole
Marcelo.
thing really quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have like a worship song that's on my mind. Can I give you a Christian song?
Yeah.
Because today
Mainstream
on
Christian
the
music?
way to work, I don't know why I chose it, but I was listening to The Great Adventure by
Ooh.
Stephen Curtis Chapman. And I have to say, yes, I have to say, as a child, because I listened to it growing up, I didn't know how good it was. And like now I'm like, Stephen Curtis Chapman
That's that guy.
was so good.
I wish I knew who that was.
Oh, man.
You
I
don't know him at
I
all.
know the song. I don't know what he looks like.
I don't know if you're saved. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm imagining a white guy with a big mustache. Am I
Did he
close?
have a mustache in the 90s? Probably not.
He was white
Matthews.
in the
Could've
90s,
done
and
it.
he's still white now. But
He is, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that's on my running mix.
So good,
I love
man.
it. Old school Christian song.
You know, I grew up with a God-fearing mother. Okay,
What did you listen to?
She loved old school Christian music, but I was more of like a Kirk Franklin type of guy. You know what I'm saying? Like
so
Revolution.
Interesting.
Yes.
Book of Revelation, chapter 7, verses 16 and 17.
Preach up.
They shall hunger no more, neither shall they thirst anymore.
Preach up.
So that
I think
song,
it's only once
Sorry,
that they say that,
sorry.
but yeah.
That was
if you never heard that song, you need to go listen to it right now.
classic.
Yeah.
Classic. I love the old Lakewood soundtrack, like Friend of God.
How's that
I
one
am
go?
a friend of God.
Like Israel Houghton.
Oh, yes.
Was he on that?
Oh, yeah.
Was he like the main guy at Lakewood
He was
at that point?
the dude.
Man.
And man, my mom would crank that with her Joyce Myers playing in the background.
Feels so familiar.
And she would tell me to get out of there because she's having time with Jesus.
Dang.
So-
She's having time with her friend.
Dude, I'm hanging out with Joyce, okay? Would you get out of here? Sorry. Well, sorry.
So you are our worship leader here at Countryside, and I'm not too sure people know about your background, kind of how you were raised, where you came from. So you want to give us a quick little rundown of that?
Yeah. I grew up in the backwoods of Kentucky, and people like to ask me where I'm from, and it's just too hard to explain. So
the
I
holler.
don't. Huh?
In the holler.
In the holler. And if you don't know what a holler is, you can just Google it.
Yeah.
But I don't even know how to spell it. So, I mean, maybe Google can help you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I grew up on a farm, but like not like a real farm. I don't know how to explain it. It's
What'd
not
y'all
like
grow?
we didn't grow anything.
Well, it's like a farm. We just don't
like
have
we
any
didn't
food.
do
It's like
anything.
a farm
It was
where
like a
famine
cattle
came.
farm.
Okay.
And then what else did we? I mean, we had a couple horses.
Any goats?
We didn't have any goats.
Any chickens?
So, no. And
Not
yes.
a farm. Just a lot of land.
Wait, yes. So my uncle, like this is the kind of farm, it was like a family farm. So my grandma lived like a quarter mile away from us. And then my uncle lived in like the same spot. So it's like just
Same
all
holler.
of us there. And my uncle had 3 Tyson chicken barns. So it's like industrial farming
Jeez.
stuff. And they are rank. They smell so bad.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's really bad. So it's like industrial farming. I wouldn't say it's like
So
you've got a chicken coop.
how many cows did you guys have?
Oh man, I don't know, like 100. If my dad listens
That's
to
a
this,
farm, dude.
he'll be
Oh,
like,
that's a farm. I take it back. That's a
yeah,
farm.
no, I think there were more cows in the town that I grew up in than people.
I
What
believe
type of
that.
cows were they? Like
Summer
Angus?
cows, like
Some,
summer cows.
I have no idea.
Did you ever name a cow? That's
Wait,
what
I
I
have to finish the
Oh,
joke.
sorry.
Summer like brown, summer black.
Oh, I got.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I did
bad
name some cows, and they were like really good names. So one of them's name was Sirloin.
Sirloin.
Yeah,
Miss
Sirloin.
Steak.
Oh, I didn't do that.
That would be a good one.
Ribeye was one of their names. My dad named that one.
Did you eat them?
that.
Oh yeah.
Dang.
Sorry.
Steak's my favorite food. You know,
Steak
but I
is
don't know
so
if I
good.
can name a cow and then eat it. That'd be tough for me.
That's real country.
I was
probably
just
could.
brought up that way. I didn't
Man,
know
I like
any
that.
different.
So speaking of, just real quick, growing up on a farm in Kentucky,
Yeah.
what's the most country thing you've done?
Because like now when we talk like country, like I feel like you've rejected that life.
Yeah.
But I
Rejected
feel
that
like
life.
there's a little redneck in you.
Somewhere.
But why? Where do you see that?
Because you grew up on a farm.
Just because you
Just
know
'cause there's
it.
something there.
You just know
like
it.
what's the most country thing about you?
The country. Oh,
Like the most.
I really don't know. And I never did any. I don't know what like people do that's country on a farm. I mean, like I could give you examples
Like
of
you ever
things.
branded a cow or something?
No.
You ever like milked one?
No,
You
it
know-
wasn't like a. It wasn't a dairy farm. It was like a for meat cattle
Yeah.
So
farm.
I'm gonna say this, and I don't. Mean
Oh,
to
I can tell you one
Okay,
thing.
go
I
ahead.
just thought of a thing. We used to like run up and down lines of hay bales.
Okay, that's pretty country.
That's
pretty
a country thing.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say that one of the country things about you was, and this is like no disrespect to anybody,
Uh-oh.
especially our viewers. You're
course.
homeschooled. You were homeschooled. That's pretty country. I mean,
Is it?
it's a little
Is it
country.
only country?
No, it's not. But it's a
Just
little
like the
country.
way I was homeschooled.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a little country.
Yes, I was homeschooled from the very beginning into.
And you
the very
turned out
end.
pretty good.
I turned out
Turned
okay.
out pretty good.
Yeah.
Valedictorian.
That's it.
Love it.
I was. Yeah.
So I want to take a moment and just do a little dive into kind of everyone's background a little bit. So Andrew, where did you grow up, man?
I grew up in Oldsmar, Florida.
Yep.
Right? O-Town.
then why are you so country?
Well, I guess it's just the family.
You're more country
So-
than me
That's
It's
actually
just-
true.
by a lot.
Well, see, so here's the thing with Florida. If you look at like the real Floridians,
Mm-hmm.
they are country people. I mean, they
Florida
I mean,
crackers.
even like the old Safety Harbor, that used to be like cow land, like
Palm
where
Harbor.
our churches was all like
Yeah.
cow fields. So there's some country. We still out here
So
running
what's-
on hay bales, homeschooling our
I've
kids.
never
you
seen
know?
a hay bale since I've moved to Florida.
No,
No.
They're gone now,
Are there
man.
some here?
they're around. Maybe like Lutz area. They're out
Pasco.
here.
Hey, that Target in Boot Ranch, that big old boot, that's pretty
That was
country.
a farm.
All right.
That was a
So
I just feel like that's not real country, you know?
No,
That's
it's-
like
different type of country.
yeah.
So speaking of where you grew up, I feel like so Andrew and I actually grew up like across the street from each other.
Yeah.
Like, but it was like across the tracks, if you know what I'm saying. Like he lived in the better part of Oldsmar. I lived in the government subsidized housing part of Oldsmar.
Hey, I felt like a part of me lived there with y'all.
And I felt like a part of me lived on the rich
You know what I'm
side
saying?
too.
It's like,
so
there.
what's really funny about that is we're not joking. We literally lived across the street from one another, and he would come over to our neighborhood sometimes, and I go over to his neighborhood just to
Yeah.
trick or treat because y'all gave out the big candy bars.
size candy bars.
If you trick or treated in my neighborhood, you didn't know who's gonna open the door or if you'd make it
Oh, no.
You don't
away
knock on a door that you don't know
from that apartment
That's it.
alive. So I remember one time you had come over to our neighborhood,
Yeah.
the apartments,
Yeah.
and the police got involved. Are you comfortable sharing the story?
Yeah, I'll say it, man.
All right.
Oh.
I've grown a lot in my faith since this time.
All right.
Well, so we were shooting what was it called? A pellet
What were
gun?
you
Like
shooting?
an airsoft gun.
Airsoft gun type.
Yeah.
But it was a BB. It was a BB gun.
Yeah.
And we were shooting a BB gun, shooting cans, and there's this kid that walked by, and we are like, oh yeah. And it's not like I'm 18 or 19. I'm like 11.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like 25.
I'm like, okay, I'm married. I have 2 kids. No, I'm very, very young,
Yeah.
very stupid, and wanted attention.
I
'cause
get
was
it.
a
You're
middle child.
repenting. You're repenting.
Yes, I've repented.
Yes.
This kid walks by,
Shirtless.
and I shoot him. Okay, and I get him right in the middle of his chest,
Give him a third nipple.
and that was it. So
Yeah. And then the cops were called, and Stuart, which was my stepdad, his uncle,
yeah,
stood up for you, man. Be like, these
He
good
lied for
kids,
me.
man. This kid's not from here, okay? He's from across the
The
street.
other
all right? He's a
side.
good
they
kid.
don't know better.
I'm like,
They
oh, he's from there. We're not messing with him. They try to take me to jail. No, I'm just kidding. But so that was just kind of our
Yeah.
upbringing. We both were raised here in Pinellas County, but you were raised in Kentucky,
The middle of
backwoods, middle of
So
nowhere.
like trick or treating was very different there too,
Yeah,
because
how'd you do that?
I didn't. One, because like we didn't believe in it, I guess.
Morally,
But
yeah.
Secondly, because you would have to walk a half mile to get to the first
Dang.
person's house. Like you'd have to probably
And if
walk
there's no
4
candy
miles.
there, then
Yeah.
you did all that work for nothing.
Oh my gosh.
In my mind, I'm imagining like a dry county. We get to
It
like drive
was.
to the county over to grab a
There
beer
was
or
it was a
something.
really big deal whenever that changed.
Really?
Yeah.
Man,
I
yeah.
was like a teenager and I remember thinking like, oh, this is terrible. I
Yeah.
can't believe it.
So
It's all going to hell in a handbasket.
It was.
what is
yeah.
wrong with this world? So you grew up there in Kentucky, and you actually led worship from a young age.
Yeah.
So what was that like leading worship at what I'm assuming is like a small country church?
Yeah. I mean, I said something about that a while ago, that it was a small country church. And my brother was like, it wasn't a country church, but I mean, it was a small church.
In the country.
In the country, yes.
Okay. Not like cowboy church or something. where
Definitely
everyone's wearing
not.
their
Yeah.
boots.
I don't even know. Whenever I think of a small country, what do you think of when you
Did
think
someone
of that?
ride their
Think of your
horse
church.
No.
to the church?
No one rode a horse
Okay.
or a
Just
tractor.
their four-wheelers.
Okay.
You know?
They're lifted trucks?
I don't remember.
Or
Maybe.
was that squatted? I don't know.
I don't know.
Lifted back then.
I don't know. Yeah, so it was trying to be like a modern church, definitely trying to be. But yeah, I started at a really young age there, and like before I really knew how to do music, I was already on the stage because small churches need people. So I was up there from the time I was like 12 years old and leading worship from the time I was like 16.
When did you know that you were so gifted in singing and playing instruments?
When did I know I was so gifted?
Yeah, like to the
As
point
opposed to like just regular gifted?
well, I mean, there's people that are like, okay, you can sing, but like you can sing.
Oh,
like,
geez. I
sing,
probably
sing.
thought that about myself like, way too early. Like,
Really?
oh my goodness. I thought I was going to be like a recording artist
Okay.
when I was like 8 years old. So
Okay.
I always thought way
And was
too
that like
highly
a
of myself.
self-confidence you had, or did someone kind of
I
speak that over
honestly
you?
don't know. I think I just thought, I think no one had said anything negative yet is
Yeah.
probably what it was.
That makes sense.
So yeah, no, from a very young age, I thought I could do way more than I probably could have.
So you have led worship at a small church in the country,
Yes.
not a small country church.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now you've led led worship for a church of thousands. What is the difference in those two things for you?
Yeah. I mean, like the actual doing it is pretty much the same thing. Like being up there, I guess like one seems probably a lot more glamorous to people. But I don't know. Doing it is the same. You know, you're leading people.
And I think that's the way God wants it to be.
Yeah.
Where it's like, whether this is for 1,000 people, 2,000, 5,000,
Right.
or 50 or 20, at the end of the day, we're doing it for the audience of one.
Yeah.
We're doing it for him.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not doing it for the number. And that's one of the things that I love so much about Alana, is she is so humble.
Yeah.
Because, man, I have met a lot of worship pastors, and yes, they love the Lord, and they are talented, and they are great, but they really love themselves a lot sometimes.
They know they're great.
And they
I already
know
went
it.
through that
And so-
when I was 8.
But the thing that's great is, like, I talk to other pastors and they're talking about their worship leaders. And they're like, just pray for me, my worship leader. I was like, ours is great. She's awesome. She's humble. She wants to.
Man.
She'll help out. And I think so. How do you keep a humble heart
Yeah.
when you have an influence with thousands and thousands of people, and you're in front of people, and you're good, and all of these different things? How do you stay grounded and keep yourself humble and not buy into the lie of, oh yeah, I actually am this very special person and all these different things?
That is a deep question.
Well, welcome to the Fully Dedicated.
Fully
Oh
dedicated.
my
man.
goodness. I think one of the biggest things I can think of, like I said, leading worship at a large church with all the lights and the smoke and the resources that we have, it really does become this glamorized thing. I mean, I even see photos back from a Sunday and I'm like, oh my goodness, that was like really cool. Like I look really cool on stage because I saw that photo. But like in the moment, it's not that it feels bad or like it's not special. It feels special because God's there and moving, and I think that's something that is really important to us in our worship teams. We remind ourselves every single week, like this isn't about us. This is all to point people to Jesus. But on top of that, for me, I think about how little of my life is actually spent on a stage, and like right now having a 18-month-old daughter, I'm like, I spend more time changing diapers than I do singing, cool songs on on stages, and like I think stuff like that, just remembering that life is very small amounts of life is lived on a stage, and like remembering who you actually are made to be is more for your family and more for the people around you than to be a show.
And I feel like this isn't just in ministry. This is in life in general. So a lot of times when you succeed at something or you're really good at something, people will come to you and sing your praises and like, wow, you're such a good salesman. Wow, you're such a great manager. Wow, you're such a great worship leader. Man, that message was the best message I ever heard. I'm like, it wasn't. It's you like me because you hear me once a month. Let's just be honest. Yeah. But one of the things that my dad told me was, you can take those compliments.
Yeah,
you feel it. Take it. And it's like, I received that. Thank you for your kind words, but don't always just believe your press. Just because someone tells you like, hey, this is this, it's like, at the end of the day, it's all about God.
Right.
And he can choose whoever he wants. He just so happened to give you this gift.
Yeah.
He just so happened to make Pastor Marcelo a very gifted speaker. It's the gifts that he's given us.
So, and that's the thing too, that press can change very quickly.
They'd be the first ones to turn on you.
Bro, for real. Look at Jesus, man. Yep. He walked into Jerusalem, or rode in on that donkey's colt. Yeah. They were giving him praise, laying down their clothes at his feet. Those same people just a few days later are yelling, crucify him, crucify him. So he knows that full well.
And they do it in ministry to people, and they do it in the real world to people.
Yeah.
Some of the people that I used to manage, they'd be like, you're the best manager ever. And then they quit 2 days later. I was like, hold up. We just had a conversation. I thought you loved me. Yeah. And now you hate me.
Or like, file a complaint and get an EEOC involved.
But I think that's why it's so important for us to stay grounded as Christians, not just in ministry, but in every walk of life. It's like, don't believe the lies of I am the best. It is all because of me. I've worked for this. I've put in the hours. No, God has allowed you to do this. Allowed to whatever it is, motherhood, in your job. It's like, because pride is dangerous. Yeah. I mean, that's why we're all here and we're struggling through different things. Is the first sin ever was pride. Satan fell. He fell like lightning. So it's a real thing that we all, everyone as a Christian has to fight against.
Yeah, it's you got to keep things in perspective, not just in ministry, but anyone here watching that's, in a job, in sales, in management, as a worker, they will replace you like this. It's like, okay, you did great last year. You beat the sales goals.
What have you done for me lately?
If you mess up this year, you could be gone. So it's like, I don't care that people are saying, oh, you're so amazing, you're the best. You focus on what you can do. And if you can honestly look in the mirror and say, you know what, I've done my very best today, that's what we're looking for. That's what God's looking for, is to honor him in the day by day. So I want to move on to a little more of a current topic with the current state of worship music nowadays. Okay. So, I love worship music, but I'm not the type of person that goes and like finds new songs. I'm not up to date with all like the new stuff. That's what my wife Danica does for me. She kind of keeps me on track. But as a worship leader, as a voice in this industry and having the influence you do and leading worship on a weekly basis, what is your view on the current state of worship music? Do you like where it's headed? Is there things you would change? What are your just overall thoughts on that?
That is a very deep question. Like really, really deep. And actually, I would love to hear what y'all think about this, because that is such a multifaceted question. There are things that I love about where worship music is headed. I love that over the last, maybe it's been 10 years, you can hear songs that are coming out from all different corners of the country, and they're all saying essentially the same thing, which I think is really cool, because what I would think that means is that God is speaking to people they're not talking to each other, like I
Yeah.
think he's saying very similar things to a lot of churches across the country, and you hear that when you're listening to a Spotify playlist, and it's like, oh, it's all of these things are kind of in the same thread, and I think that shows that God is speaking something overall to the big church,
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the cool things I see about worship and where it's headed right now. I know that I'm sure there's a lot of negative things that we could bring to the table about what we don't like about worship, or maybe just the worship industry. But I think that there's a lot of negative things that we can find in the Bible about people who were worshipers as well. I mean, like thinking about David writing the Psalms, he wasn't the most pure person in the world. And like I was thinking about Mary pouring her perfume on Jesus' feet. Like, she was not the most pure and chaste woman either, from what we understand. So I just think about, like, it's so easy for us to judge worship leaders sometimes. And I think that's just kind of the landscape of what worship has always been, like worship comes from imperfect people, so it's going to be imperfect sometimes. But
Interesting.
yeah.
So do you feel like worship leaders and just these amazing worship bands that put out these awesome songs
Like Creed.
And I don't know.
No, I'm just joking.
Do you think that they get a lot of undue criticism, or do you think that the way that they're viewed is to be held accountable and it's okay?
I mean, like, all the criticism, where's it coming from? The internet. Is the internet nice to anybody? Like, but it's also so crazy to me that, like, the people who are consuming this are Christians, right?
Yeah.
And, like, how crazy is it how comfortable we are throwing stones at other Christians? And, like, I get it. We would really love for our leaders and the people that we consider like maybe a little higher than us, which we would probably put worship leaders in that category. We would love to feel that they're perfect and feel like they're morally upstanding in every single part of their life. And absolutely, we should strive for that, I think. But that's just not going to be the case. It's never been the case. So I think to just like continually criticize these people is just kind of a waste of time.
I think so many times in our American culture, you look at American Idol, you look at all these things where, even in mega churches and celebrity pastors and worship leaders, but really they're just artists and all of these different things. And we've put them on a pedestal.
Right.
It's like, let's chill out. Yes, they are talented, but we really need to put Jesus on that pedestal.
Come on.
Yeah.
Because if you are looking to this artist or this worship leader or this pastor and they are holding your hope in Jesus in their hands, then your hope isn't rooted in something good.
Come on,
and
man.
if you love the pastor more than you love Jesus, or the worship leader more than you love Jesus, that's not a relationship with God.
Right.
It's idolatry.
Yeah.
And if someone falls or fails morally, a worship leader or a pastor, and that affects your relationship with God, then I'd have to ask if you even had a relationship with God. Because if they are our answer and they are our hope, then we have a deeper issue on our hands.
Right.
I think people have the wrong perspective on spiritual leaders. The Bible is very clear that as the church, we're all just different parts of God's body. And I think Paul puts it like, the eye can't say to the foot, like, we don't need you.
For sure.
So it's like, yeah, you're a worship leader, you're a pastor, but it's like, I'm just a part of the body that's just as equally important as you sitting here in the seat who's serving in the nurseries.
For sure.
So it's just keeping that mindset, because the culture of the world is, okay, the person on stage is the one who is powerful and in charge, and they're the good person, then I'm just not. But that's not how God's kingdom is. It's the opposite. The least is actually the greatest in the kingdom of God.
Yes. But I think that there should be accountability for pastors.
Oh, yes.
Heavy accountability. I mean, the Bible talks about accountability for elders and deacons and pastors and different things. So to me, it's like, for people who are in ministry, it's like, you need to have accountability. There is an expectation that's in the Word of God, but also to members of the church and of any church. It's like if you look at them as your God and as your source, you need to reevaluate your relationship with God.
It's really good. So what are some worship bands right now that you enjoy listening to? Just for not like, hey, I want to do their songs. It could be, but just where you want to worship the Lord and you're like, man, I'm just going to worship. What do you put on?
So I feel like there's a lot of overlap right now between some like just regular Christian artists and then worship. It kind of feels like it's all melding together right now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do I listen to Elevation. Everyone does.
I love it.
I love Elevation.
Yeah, you got good songs.
I'm trying to think of some others that maybe aren't as like been around. So everyone loves Brandon Lake. Everyone loves Phil Wickham.
So can we do it? Can
Throw
we sing it?
up
Let's do it.
your hands.
And praise you again and again.
He's a good dude, man. He's a really good dude.
He seems awesome.
Yeah.
We met him.
I didn't, but my wife did.
I didn't
and she
either.
told me he's really cool. So
Great hair.
I believe him.
Wow. He does have great hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of moving on from that into more personal question for you. Have you ever written a original worship song? And if so, which I think you have,
Yeah.
what is that process like? Like you just sit down one
Yeah.
day and you're just like, I'm just going to write something out.
Yeah, it's wildly frustrating.
Really?
No. Yes and no. Writing is like, okay, so I feel like writing is writing, whether or not it's a song or a sermon or a short story or whatever it is that you want to write. Now, there's a lot more I think that goes into writing a song because it has to rhyme, it has to be in a certain meter, it's got to be right. I think that that's true of a lot of writing, but like if you're going to write a worship song, you can't just say things that you feel. It has to be like biblical and
That's good. That's always good.
that's
important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the criticisms I think people have of worship music.
That sloppy wet kiss.
Which one is it?
I don't care. It's sloppy wet kiss to me. I do not
I
care.
sang Sloppy Wet Kiss for so many years of my life before I knew it was controversial. That's what you get for living in the middle of the country. No one even tells you things are controversial.
When I was a teenager and I was singing sloppy wet kiss, I didn't think there was an issue with it.
Yeah, you loved
Looking
it.
back
I
now, I'm
still
like-
sing sloppy wet kiss. Everyone's like unforeseen. I'm like sloppy.
When I
What verse is that?
heard
Lay it on me,
Unforeseen
Lord.
for the first time, I was like, what did they just sing? Why did they?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I
It's
kind
the
of get it
edited
now.
version.
It is the edited
Was it
version.
David Crowder?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
That's
thought
the explicit
it was a
version.
little too much. Yes.
Explicit.
I can't play it on the church Wi-Fi. It's actually blocked
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
There's a long beep.
It's like the VidAngel of Spotify.
Now, so with worship, which we talked about you leading worship, writing songs, and these different things, what could you encourage the listener today with worship? Like how to express yourself to God, how to worship God. Because at the end of the day, that's something that we're commanded to do is to worship God.
Yeah.
So how would you say like, hey, these are some ways that I do it, but also here are some ways that you can worship God?
I mean, like, I think in the end, it comes down to what does God want, which is all very laid out biblically. You know, he has things that he expects from us or things that he said, here's how you can express yourself to me.
Sure.
And like, I couldn't tell you what all the references are, but he talks about raising your hands. He talks about shouting with joy. He talks about kneeling before him. He talks about dancing, which is controversial as well. I didn't know.
Yeah.
But so many things that like God says, this is how you can present yourself to me in worship. But I mean, like, I guess in my life and the things that I find connect me with the Lord the most, obviously I like to sing. I like to do music stuff. I'm a creative person, so I think that anytime that I do sit down and try to write a song or sit down and do something creative, that's one of the ways that I connect with God, because that is something God is. He's creative. So I think that using your gifts is one of the ways that you can connect with God. But I mean, like, using small moments like driving in the car and like expressing gratitude for your life and for the things that God's given you. There's just so many ways, but I mean, those are small ways, I feel.
So I got to ask a question that I'm sure everyone's wondering right now. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Where can we find your worship song
no.
that you wrote? Or if you have written any?
Nowhere right now.
Is it not released yet? Nothing?
Did you say one that I did
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Is there one you're talking
No,
about
you just mentioned how
specifically?
you'd written some
Oh.
in the past. Are they
Yeah,
out? Are
I've,
they?
I've written a lot of songs in the past. They're
Okay.
all living in like a hard drive right now, and maybe one day they'll come out.
All right.
Mm.
Well,
I really think soon.
all
I
right.
want the world
But this
to
isn't like a
know.
tease. You know how sometimes people like
Yeah.
do this and then they're like, yeah, maybe soon.
Maybe
and
it's
like they
coming, and
really
we've
have a
already filmed
release
an
date
intro
already and they've
for it.
already filmed
Yeah.
the music. This isn't that.
Listen, here in Fully Dedicated, we don't fake things, okay? So
Yeah.
this was a real conversation. She had
real.
no idea I was asking her that.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll release them from the hard drive one day.
I would love to.
If you do, just let us
I
know
would
where
love
to
to
find them.
soon. I will.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
We'll
thank
plug
you.
it in a future episode, kind of like we just
Oh
did.
yeah, it could be
Yeah.
the intro music.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for taking the
Yeah.
time and talking with us today. And Fully Dedicated family, if you could do us a favor, like this video, share it with your friends, give us a 5-star review, whatever you're watching this on. It truly helps us so much. And stay tuned for our next episode.